Alright guys, we're going to try something a little new today. I'm going to read your guided reading with you and try to highlight to help you guys out with your guided reading and your social studies for this week. So Mr. Munger wanted you guys to do your guided reading and also do your Quizlet. And if you have any issues with your Quizlet, I'm sure that getting into your Quizlet, you can probably email him and he can maybe help you with that. Your terms to know, or your Quizlet terms, you guys know where to find them, but they're up here. Right here, you have 4 terms to do. You have elector, you have outcome, you have resign, and you have display. So just 4 terms to do this week. Super simple. And now we will get to the reading. See if I can turn the highlighter part off. There we go. Alright, so the office of the President. The President of the United States heads the executive branch of the national government. Because of America's strong influence around the world, the President may hold the most important job in the world. The Constitution lists 3 rules about who can become President. A person must be at least 35 years old and have been born in the United States. He or she also must have lived in the country for at least 14 years. Alright, so I'm going to stop here. Our first question says, what is the purpose of the Constitution's rules about who can be president? And it says you're going to have to infer, because what it says that they have to be 35 years old and have been born in the United States, and he or she must have lived in the country for at least 14 years. So why do you guys think that they put those rules in place? So that's your first question, and I will let you guys make that inference. All right, moving on. Many past presidents have been white, male, Protestant Christians, and many were lawyers. In the past 60 years, candidates from a wider group of Americans have had the chance to be elected. In 1960, John F. Kennedy became the first Roman Catholic elected as president. In 2008, Barack Obama became the first African American president. And in addition, 2 women have run for vice president with a major party, Geraldine Ferraro and Sarah Palin. Joseph Lieberman was the first Jewish candidate for vice president. All right, stopping here, it says prior knowledge. Question number 2, list 3 U.S. presidents. So you guys say the presidents every day and have since you were in 6th grade. So you can pick 3 presidents from the list that you say every day at school. But just a couple of examples here. We have John F. Kennedy, and we also have Barack Obama. And then I'm sure that many of you can come up with a 3rd president. Moving on, the election for president is held every 4 years. The people, however, do not directly choose the president. Instead, a group called the Electoral College elects him or her. When people vote for president, they are choosing electors. Electors are members of the Electoral College who are selected to vote for presidential candidates in elections. The electors meet to vote for president in December. So, what do you guys know about when the election is? The election is in November. It's always the second Tuesday in November. And then, so once the voting is over, then this group of electors meets in December to finalize the vote for president. Each state has the same number of electors as it has members of Congress. There are 538 electors in the Electoral College today. In most states, the candidate who gets more than half of the people's vote wins all of that state's electoral votes. This is called the winner-takes-all rule. This is true even if the candidate wins by only a few votes. So, a small number of votes can make a big difference in the outcome or result of an election. To win the national election, a person must get at least half of the 538 electoral votes. This means the person must get at least 270 votes. If no one person gets 270 votes, the House of Representatives must decide the election. This has only happened twice, in 1800 and 1824. If the House votes, each state only gets one vote. All right, so stopping right there. Question number 4, so you don't have to do question number 3 because it's a foldable. Question number 4, how many votes are needed to win the Electoral College? To win in the Electoral College? Well, it says right here that a person must get at least 270 votes in order to win the Electoral College. Moving on. The president serves a 4-year term. At first, the Constitution didn't limit the number of terms a president could serve. George Washington served for 2 terms. He set an example by refusing to run for a 3rd term. Many years later, Franklin Roosevelt ran for president 4 times and won all 4 elections. Many people worried that the number of presidential terms were not limited so that one person could become too powerful. So Congress passed the 22nd Amendment, and it was ratified in 1951. It said that a president could only serve 2 terms in office. Question number 5 says, why did Congress pass the 22nd Amendment? Well, if you look in the paragraph that I just read, it says many people were worried that if the number of presidential terms were not limited, one person could become too powerful. And number 6, you have to kind of pull some prior knowledge, and I know it's been a while since we've been at school, but it says, why would people be concerned about the president having too much power? So think back several months ago, before we started the bill process and all of that, when we talked about the Constitutional Convention and how the Constitution came to be. Think about where we were and who was ruling us during that time period and what we didn't like. Think about why we came up with the Constitution to be the way it was. What did we not like about being in British rule, and what were we trying to do? All right, we'll keep moving. The president receives pay and other benefits while in office. Those are shown on the chart below. So it says the president's salary and benefits. The president is paid a salary of $400,000 per year. He receives money for personal costs and travel, lives and works in the White House, has a staff of more than 80 people to take care of him and his family. He gets use of Camp David and has a special fleet of cars, helicopters, and airplanes, such as Air Force One. The Electoral College also chooses the vice president. The rules for becoming vice president are the same as those for president. The Constitution does not give the vice president much power. It says that the vice president will lead the Senate, but it can only vote to break a tie. It also says the vice president becomes president if the president dies, is removed from office, falls seriously ill, or resigns. And if you'll remember, resigns means takes steps down from their office. Next section says presidential succession. So pay attention because this is the next question, number 7. President William Henry Harrison died in 1841. He was the first president to die in office. The Constitution says the vice president should take on the powers and duties of the president, but no one was sure what that meant. Should the vice president stay in office as the vice president, but do the president's job? Vice President John Tyler decided he should declare himself president and take the oath of acting office. Then he served out the rest of Harrison's term. In 1947, Congress passed a law called the Presidential Succession Act. Succession means to follow. The law spelled out who would become president and in what order. The vice president is first, followed by Speaker of the House, then the President pro tempore of the Senate. If none of those 3 people can serve, the job falls to the Secretary of State. The list provides 18 possible replacements for the president. The chart below displays or shows the first 10. So the first question on the page, number 7, says, why is it important for the nation to know the order of succession in the government? Well, why do you think that that's important? Isn't it important for you guys to know who is in charge? And let's say that Mr. Bartlett has to be out of the school for a couple of days because he's out of town for some meetings, or he's gone because Mrs. Bartlett's having a baby. Isn't it important for you guys to kind of know who's in charge? I think that's it's pretty important to know who's in charge. All right, your next question says, when a vice president becomes president, how is the next vice president chosen? Well, let's keep reading and see if it says. In 1967, Congress passed the 25th Amendment. This amendment gives the procedures to be followed if it becomes necessary for the vice president to assume the president's job. It also solved another problem. In the past, when a vice president became president, the office of vice president was left empty. The 25th Amendment states the following: if the president dies or leaves office, the vice president becomes president. The new president then chooses a vice president. Congress must approve his choice. So I think that might answer our question. When the vice president becomes president, then he gets to choose a new vice president. All right, let's go back up to question 9 before we keep reading. Number 9 says to identify, says to study the chart. Which officer becomes president if the vice president, Speaker of the House, and President pro tempore are unable to serve? So it says if this one can't do it, and this one can't do it, and this one can't do it, who's your next person? Who comes after the President pro tempore? All right, back to here. So we're at number 10. So now we've learned about what happens if the vice president has to choose a new vice president. If the president becomes disabled and cannot do the job, the vice president serves as acting president until the president is able to go back to work. This could happen because of an event such as a heart attack or surgery. For the vice president to step in as acting president, the vice president and majority of the cabinet members must agree and report to Congress that the president is unable to do his job. Number 10 says, mark the text. Circle an example of what might cause the vice president to assume the duties of acting president. So it's on this page, and you've got a couple of options. You could choose if he died or left office, or, you know, if they had a heart attack or surgery. Number 11, what problem with the vice presidency was the 25th Amendment meant to solve? So the 25th Amendment solved what problem with the vice president? Well, often when the vice president had to become president, this office was left empty right here. Well, the 25th Amendment stated what would happen to the office of vice president. All right, and lastly, for our check of understanding, name 2 qualifications that a person must have to become president of the United States. And we're going to find that back up here at the top in this highlighted part right here that we already did. We highlighted it early. And then our last question says, if a president dies and the vice president takes over, name the 2 things that must happen before a new vice president can take office. Well, right here, for the vice president to step in as acting president, the vice president and majority cabinet members must agree and report to Congress that the president is unable to do their job. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I hate that I can't be there to read this and help you guys in person, but I hope that this is helpful and you are able to get your social studies completed for Mr. Munger. If you do have any questions, please email me and I will be happy to help you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you on Friday for study skills.